Assalamualaikum. I am Samia binti Kasim from section 400.
I am Nur Iza Aini binti Muhammad Yusuf.
My name is Ahmad Rashada Makama.
My name is Lukman Haris Agamuddin bin Jamal.
My name is Abdurrahman Haris and our topic is satisfaction IIUM students regarding time taken to the other class.
Every student is provided with class or room to perform their learning process. This is to encourage students to learn while being focused in the class. Different from primary and secondary school, university students do not have their own class. Namely, the students need to move from one class to another class because there are no specific class for students. Generally, there is no gap time between two classes in the time schedule and course. Lecturer need to end the class earlier or the student will be late for their next class. In the other hand, majority of CFS IIUM Kuantan students do not have any personal transports. Thus our objective in this study are, firstly to study the time taken needed to move from their previous class to the next class, second to compare the time taken to move in the shortest time and the longest time. Lastly is to identify the time taken for students to move to their and other classes if there is an obstacle like rainy day.
We managed to collect our data from 50 respondents by online survey, but we only choose data from 40 respondents. The remaining respondents are rejected. We use the random sampling method to choose the 40 respondents out of 50 respondents. This is because each respondent is chosen entirely and has an equal chance of being included in the sample. Besides, this method is free from sampling bias. Histogram graph is used to represent the data of time taken by CFS student to reach to the next class. Based on the graph above, we can deduce that the class interval of 6 to 10 minutes uphold the highest frequency, which is a total of 17 students. Next, the next class interval of 11 to 15 minutes have the second highest frequency, which is 15 students. This shows that the distance between the current class and the next class quite far. For students took only 0 to 5 minutes to reach to their next class. It shows that maybe the next class are at the same venue or building. Only a student has the highest time taken to reach to the next class, which is around 21 to 25 minutes. This means that the class are very far and could affect the student to be late to the next class. To conclude, the majority of CFS students take average of 6 to 15 minutes to reach to the next class. Minority of the CFS students take more than 20 minutes to reach to the next class. On the data above, the mean of the time taken to the class data is 10.5 minutes. So mostly students take around 10 minutes to reach to the next class. Moreover, the median of the data is 6.16 minutes, where we can conclude that it is the ideal time taken the student take to reach to the next class. The mode of the data, which is 10 minutes, show the longest time taken for the student to reach the next class. The variance that we got is 19.23, which depict the data collected are homogeneous. Last but not least, the standard deviation obtained from the data is 4.39, which indicate that the data that we collect tend to be close to the mean, as the standard deviation that we got is small.
Okay, for the furthest distance between classes, as we can see that frequency of the student will took about 11 to 15 minutes, just as same as the student will took about 16 to 20 minutes, which are 14% to work for the next classes. Basically, students who work for example, like from kuliah of dentistry and kuliah of science, which are very far, usually took them about 11 to 20 minutes, while the student will only have to take about 1 to 5 minutes, which is 2%, walk maybe got their classes which are not far from each other classes, including the lecturer for the class before let them a little bit late. This still can be considered as problem because the student might do not get some input as they are very late coming to the class. For the nearest class, generally there are no students who took 16 to 25 minute walk. Majority of the students have the nearest class for them, but still took them about 6 to 10 minutes to walk for their next classes. Approximately 62% of students took about 6 to 10 minutes, and the other 30% only took 1 to 5 minutes to walk for their next class. Apart of that, there are still 8% of students that have to walk for about 11 to 15 minutes, even though it is the nearest class and they get it in this semester too. If in a rainy day, overall there are 30% of students who took about 16 to 20 minutes, just as the same as students who took 11 to 15 minutes. Apart of that, there are 18% who spend their time walking to the next class for 21 to 25 minutes, which is very long. This can result them to be very late for their classes in a rainy day. Conversely, 20% of them just have to take about 6 to 10 minutes to go to their next class even though it is raining. Maybe the distance between the classes is not so far, that is why they do not take too long time. The other 2% must always have order a Grab so they can reach to their next class faster and without getting wet.
For the conclusions, according to the research we conducted, the main problem that we want to highlight is there is no gap between classes. For example, we had the class which start at 2 p.m. and end at 4 p.m. But still we have to walk after that the class also start at 4 p.m. But still students have to walk to go to the next class. Based on the research we conducted, we managed to get the result which is students have to walk about 10.5 minutes in average to go to their next class. As a result, they also being late for their next class. Some improvement can be made for the IIUM, such as make a facility which have been conducted in University Maya, such as e-scooter or bike, which can give students easy to go to their next class. In addition, IIUM's management also can give a little bit gap between the classes so that students have the time to walk to go to their next class. Admittedly, this is the students' problem themselves. They have to improve their skill management, their time management skill, because Allah has mentioned about time management in Surah Ibrahim verse 33 to 34. And He subjected for you the sun and the moon continuous in orbit, and subjected for you the night and the day, and He gave you from all you asked of Him. And if you should count the favor of Allah, you could not enumerate them. Indeed, mankind is generally most unjust and grateful. So what can we relate? The topic with this ayah is the students should not take granted for their time. They should manage their time properly and wisely, because the uni life is so packed. Therefore, even though it is almost impossible to not being late in the next class, but we should be able to minimize our minute of late so that we can get our input of our studies